Welcome this evening. My name is Miggy. Thank you. I'll be emceeing this evening. Welcome to everyone. Welcome to Tranzac. It's such a great privilege to be here together in person for those of you who are here. Also, those of you virtually joining the live stream, welcome. And what better way to celebrate, to come together than to celebrate the launch of these two wonderful new books. We have Dramatizing Blindness, Disability Studies as Critical Creative Narrative by Devon Heeley. And we have Disappearing Encounters in Disability Studies, edited by Tanya Titchkosky, Elaine Cagulada, Madeline DeWelles, and Efrat Gold. So just a few notes for access. We do have live captioning on the screen above me. Again, unfortunately, our ASL interpreters had car trouble immediately before the event and had to send their apologies that they were not able to make it. And we also would like to send our apologies that we weren't able to have the ASL interpretation. And again, as we get ready to start our celebration, we want to take the moment to ask if everyone's okay? Does anyone need anything? If you have any access requests, let us know right now. Anyone, or all the organizers, can you raise your hands just so folks can see? Yes. Please let us know right now if you have any issues with access. Also note that we have all gendered washrooms. If you follow to the back of the room, there's a door right beside the book sale table. If you turn right, all the way to the right, you'll find the all gendered washrooms. But yeah, does anyone else need anything? Chairs, moving around furniture, feel free to.
Does everybody have a chair? Who wants a chair?
Anyone else need chairs? We got lots of chairs. We have chair requests back there. Yes, so we have cards being sent around to be signed for the editors and the authors of the book, just as a thank you celebration.
Many students and one special professor.
And so a lot of students from our department have signed it, and we're just inviting folks to continue signing them, so thank you so much.
And this is for a special author and former fellow student at the history department, Dr. Devon Heeley, and professor.
And we have another card for previous student and now faculty member at Department of Social Justice Education, Dr. Devon Heeley, to congratulate for the book and for joining the faculty. So that'll be passed around.
Sign is something we cannot write. In addition to the birth of the book, there is another birth coming up, a little bundle of joy. So this is for the little baby, Devon. So 2 cards go to Devon, and these are all dollar round because they're coming from students. These are napkins that say shine on.
And also celebrating Dr. Devon Heeley's soon baby coming. All right, so as we get this event started, I'd like to invite Elaine Cagulada up to share a light acknowledgement for us.
Oh, wow. All right, thank you, Miggy. Let me just adjust this to my height. All right. So narrative is central in both dramatizing blindness and disappearing. Our understandings of storytelling, togetherness, and relationality are moved by indigenous epistemologies. On this evening of joy, celebrating the many ways we make blindness and disability appear and disappear. We acknowledge the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, on which we are learning and gathering. Mississauga Anishinaabe writer, artist, and scholar Leanne Simpson, in conversation with Dion Brand, once said, quote, "Land is very important to Indigenous peoples, but we think of land quite differently from the colonizers. For us, land is not an enclosure that is protected by a border. Land is not a natural resource to exploit. Land is not a commodity. It is a particular space full of relationality to which we form very deep attachments over long periods of time." End quote. Let us then reflect on how we think we know land, just as we believe we know blindness and disability. What kinds of deep attachments are we committed to forming? And how might stories of disability invite us to contemplate the relation between space and time with more care, more hesitation?
Thank you very much, Elaine. This is Miggy again. And as we come together as well, we'd like to share our gratitude for all of those who have supported the event and who've made it possible. So first of all, we have the Shirk Grant, Reimagining Disability, the Appearances and Disappearances of Disability in the Academy. We have the Center for Global Disability Studies at the University of Toronto, Scarborough. Yes. And we have the Department of Social Justice Education at the Ontario Institute for Studies and Education at the U of T. And we also have the Dean's Office at OISE. And so without further ado, I would like to start off our celebrations by celebrating our first book, Dramatizing Blindness. And I'd like to do that by first introducing Rod Michalko to introduce Devon Healey's wonderful new book.
Okay, we're turning for the podium, and I'm going to put your hand on the mic.
Oh, okay.
There, and you need to be closer to it.
I just got to take this cane apart.
Okay, I'm stepping away.
All right.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, thanks, Miggy. And so Devon has a new book? I did. This cane won't... all right, there we go. Okay, thanks so much, and thanks for inviting me here, Devon and Miggy and Tanya and all the other people in the organizing committee. And I don't know how many are here. It sounds like a lot. So it's really nice to be with all of you. And it's I've already was able to see some people I haven't seen for like ever, you know, and just because of this pandemic and other reasons. So it's really, really nice to see all of you. It's really terrific. These books that are being launched tonight, I mean, it's incredible to sometimes launch one great book, but two in one evening, that's pretty amazing. And as far as I can tell in my contact with a lot of disability studies scholars, not only here in Canada, but in different places around the world, disappearing is already having an influence. So I congratulate Tanya and Maddie and Elaine and Efrat for putting that together. Thank you so, so much. Yeah. And apparently there's a table somewhere that you can kind of go and buy one of these books. Sorry, I grew up in the north end of Winnipeg, so we didn't buy much. Also, the book by Devon, Dramatizing Blindness. That too is already having an influence on something that some scholars are beginning to call blind studies. So that book is one of the first that kind of addresses and engages in blindness in that particular way. Now, there's many, many ways that blind studies can, and sometimes here and there does, from time to time, address blindness. And it's mostly in a conventional way of what some scholars over the years are calling gain. I'm sure you've heard of that, or disability gain, where disability brings something to the culture of non-disability in some kind of a way. Now, Devon's book is a little unusual insofar as it's not so much about gain as it is about blindness being a way of understanding. It's blindness as perception. And that's really, really, to me, the crux of this book and the creativity of this book and the uniqueness of this book. It's quite important to me and personal to me insofar as Devon and I have been friends for the last 8 years and colleagues for the last 8 years. Yeah, and we've done a lot of stuff together, a lot of writing and a lot of conferences and things like that. We've also done, in speaking about blindness and stuff that Devon's been writing, stuff that I've been writing, stuff that we've been writing together, we've also done a lot of laughing and an equal amount of crying. And it's been an amazing thing. Blindness is one of those things that is dramatic. It does generate a lot of drama, both in individual life and in collective life. And as Elaine kind of hinted at in her wonderful land acknowledgement, a lot of us, blind and sighted people alike, think we know blindness. And it's one of those kinds of phenomena like life itself, that it's something we can't know and something we can't be done with until it's done with us. And yet, so often we try to be done with life and done with blindness before it's done with us. So Devon's book really, really invites us not to be done with blindness, to let it teach us and to let it influence us. But the drama is really something Devon captures in this book. And that's, blindness has been dramatic and traumatic for me for decades, and it remains that way. And Devon has really brought that out. It's a really important book to me, and I know it'll be important to you, and I think you can buy that one as well, but I'm not sure. If you want to, but you can also nick it. I mean, she can't see all that well anyway. So I don't want to take up any more time, but now I just want you to just listen to Devon talking and reading her book, okay? Thank you so much.
Rest this. The drama begins with blindness reading and setting up a mic. So thank you for your patience. Yeah. That's great. That's great. Thanks, Nate. Yeah. I just want to thank you all so much for coming. This is such a delight and a treat. I'm learning from my blindness every day, and to be honest, I never thought that blindness would generate such a wonderful gathering as tonight alongside the disappearing book. And I want to thank Rod Michalko, whose presence flows through the pages of the book, and to my sister Erin, who lent me her name for the main character. Thank you so much, Rod and Erin. To read two scenes for you today. The first coming from Act 1, The Genesis of Blindness, Scene 2. And you'll meet Erin in a couple of moments. It is a hot mid-July afternoon. The bright blue of the sky is dotted with clouds that look like a cotton ball has been pulled apart and just sort of left there. The yellow, almost bright white of the sun is directly overhead. I'm just going to adjust this mic here. Sorry. The choreography of my hand turning the page is just, yeah. Okay. And just sort of left there. The yellow, almost bright white of the sun is overhead. A light, warm breeze moves the leaves on the trees every now and then, their gentle rustle breaking the sounds of cicadas. This day feels, looks, and sounds like summer. The scene begins with a young girl, 7 or 8 years old, named Erin, standing on the sidewalk. Her back is turned to the street of semi-detached homes, typical to Scarborough, a neighborhood just outside the city of Toronto. She stands alone, her head slightly cast down. She is transfixed by something on the ground. The driveway of my grandmother's home was large. At least it felt that way to me back then. It was smooth and jet black. She had it painted every couple of years to ensure that its color, its appearance, wouldn't fade. When it was hot outside with the sun beating down from overhead, you could feel the driveway almost come to life, sending heat back up to the sun. If I didn't have my shoes on, I would sometimes stand on the sidewalk for a moment or two to cool my feet. And that's the first time I ever saw it. An image that would later come to follow me wherever I looked. It was the very first time I ever saw an oil spot. I stood on the sidewalk facing the end of my grandmother's driveway, looking down, spellbound. I was completely transfixed by the simplicity of its beauty. I stared. The heat from the sun on the jet black asphalt made the image appear as if it were alive, swirling like water as it moves down the drain. It captured my attention. I had never seen such bright colors on the ground before, or anywhere else for that matter. The swirls moved like a tornado. Each circle a different color, each color its own tornado of movement. The outer rim was neon bright blue, and it shimmered. This caught my eye first. I stood watching the warmth of the blue shimmer and swirl into a hot pink. This pink, oh, this pink spoke to me. It was playful and fun. The little stones on the driveway was highlighted by the pink, and they offered depth and texture to the image. The pink seemed inviting, almost beckoning me to have a closer look. Stage direction. Erin moves a bit closer to the image on the sidewalk. She bends over, her arms straight, hands pressed against her knees for support. She hovers closer. Then, as if out of nowhere, a burst of orangey, almost yellowish shimmer stole my eyes from the hot pink. The colors seemed as if they were competing for my gaze, fighting to take my eyesight away from the other layers of the tornado, away from me, from my control, all for itself, as if for its own amusement. How funny I thought this was, to have colors fight for my attention, the focus of my eyesight as the purpose of their existence. Stage direction. Erin squats down, her hand resting in her hands, elbows pressed atop her knees. She looks as though she is almost about to dive into the oil spot. My world disappeared into the geometric shapes of the oil. The longer I stared, the more I saw flashes of green in the shiny rainbow, and even shapes emerged in and through the colors until the shade of late afternoon moved and the sun's strength and heat had begun to diminish. It no longer fed the oil. The driveway was cooling down, and the swirling colors of the oil spot were not quite as bright and alive. Stage direction. Erin looks up to the sky. The sun has moved. The driveway is now in complete shade. Now sitting on the sidewalk, she leans back, her arms behind her, hands on the ground. How nice it would be to have a rainbow with you wherever you go, I thought. How nice it would be to have an oil spot to stare into at any time, something to entertain you and make the world disappear. Stage direction. The door of the home opens. It looks onto the driveway, and a voice yells, "Come on in for dinner." Erin jumps up and is about to run across the driveway when she is interrupted. "And don't run through the oil. You'll get it all over your feet and bring it in the house." Maybe that's how I'll bring the rainbow with me. She runs toward the door. We do not see whether she ran through the oil. Scene 3, right after. Stage direction. A rainbow of colored lights illuminates an empty stage. There is a center spotlight of blue, pink, yellow, and green that rotates at no particular speed. There's one lonely figure on stage, not a 7 or 8-year-old girl, but a woman in her early 20s. It's Erin. She stands stage left looking, not staring, but looking at the moving rainbow light center. She is standing alone, almost at attention, looking, watching the lights as they move. This was not the oil spot she remembered from her grandmother's driveway. She knew what that was and where it came from and what it would do. It would mess up the house, but now she was alone with it, looking. It had a familiar look that she recognized, but this came with a very different feel. What this was, where it came from, and what it could do, what it would do, was unclear. I don't know how long blindness has been with me before I noticed its presence. I'm sure it began with just a speck, a droplet of blindness, the way a drop of oil grows into a spot. I suppose it began with a feeling rather than a noticing of something different. It was a feeling of difference that hinted at something. The ease of simply shifting one's gaze. The unconscious, skilled mastery of controlled eye muscle movement to look and have one's head follow in such a way that prevents any motion sickness, dizziness, or distortion of the image suddenly felt different. The way in which my body interacted with the world, the way I moved when I looked, was no longer unconscious. Before I ever saw my blindness, I felt it. Strange as it seems to me now, I would shift my rib cage forward, allowing my eyes to focus on an image, bringing them, my eyes and the image, closer so that I could capture the details that I knew were there. Text on a poster, a price tag hanging from a sweater, the keys of my laptop, handwritten notes. Each required the movement of my upper body, bringing my eyes closer so that I could see. I began using my neck muscles to support the dropped weight of my head as I hovered over images to see. This new physicality of my sight, almost an intersection of my sight and my body, brought with it muscle pain, neck cramps, and even muscle spasms. My muscles felt tight and sore. I was unusually tired at the end of the day, but my sight, ironically, my creeping blindness, was not yet something I noticed. I was just a little more tired. I attempted to correct what I had interpreted as neglectful posture. Sit up straight became my mantra. Ooh, squinting, my new habit. Earlier, I was instinctively, almost automatically moving my body in order to see. Now, everything automatic was gone. I was becoming aware of a connection between moving my body and seeing. I didn't know that it was the presence of my blindness that I was noticing, but it was something, though. Correcting my posture by sitting up straight provided some relief for my neck muscles. I was more at home in my body when my spine was aligned, but this homey feeling did not align with how I needed my body to interact with the space around me. This new body alignment, however, didn't allow me to work from home, from within my body. I couldn't use my body in the ways I needed to and feel the comfort of home that an aligned spine offered. Moving my body to bridge the gap between what was out there to be seen and how I could see it became a strain on more than my eyes. And so I adjusted. Sitting up straight simultaneously caused my face muscles to tighten around my eyes. This tightening spread to my eyelids. They too contracted, almost closing, leaving only a thin horizontal sliver of vision. This worked. Squinting my eyes allowed me to sit up straight and be at home in my body. Initially, I thought my problem was muscular, and squinting solved it. What it actually was doing, how squinting really served my body, was not yet something I noticed. Still, I was curious as to why squinting helped me focus my gaze. So I did what many in my age group do. I Googled it. Google told me, very reliable source, Google told me that squinting changed the shape of the lens of my eye. This allowed me to focus on an image and see it. I used my body to manipulate the world around me, shutting out unnecessary light, focusing by squinting. I could, for a short period of time, control the ways in which the world and its images came to me. In retrospect, I seemed to act as my own ophthalmologist and optometrist. At that point, my body was accommodating me. Somehow, my body knew my eyes were changing. How it knew? I'm still not sure, but my body did move in order to adjust to my changing eyes, even though I made sense of the sensation of my body's movement differently from its connection to my eyes. I made sense of a sore neck by evoking laziness. I was too lazy to keep good posture and lean forward, causing sore neck muscles. My body, though, leaned forward to allow my eyes to see. Then squinting. My body squinted so that I could see. A squinting that caused facial muscle tension. It is in this sense that my body knew about my changing eyes before I did. Strange as it seems, I was not aware that my eyesight was changing. Something was changing, but I didn't attribute it to my eyes. My taken-for-granted relationship to my body in space, to the world in which I existed, however, turned out to have an expiry date. My eyes, like my neck muscles, began to ache, and my face appeared different. People around me asked if I was tired or if I had a cold, saying my eyes looked heavy and full of water. Others often see us in ways we do not see ourselves. Yet it wasn't my blindness that they were seeing, but rather my strained performance of seeing. I was working a little too hard to see, and others noticed. Perhaps I didn't notice because I was working so hard to see. I didn't notice, for example, how close I held a book to my eyes in order to read it. Others did, though. Perhaps the presence of creeping blindness changed the way I noticed seeing. My body did notice the creeping blindness. It adjusted to it, after all. I, in contrast, noticed only my body's adjustment. What I came to notice was the connection between the body and seeing. The body makes seeing physical, an embodied act of movement that seeks to close the distance between the eye and the world. It seemed as if I had forgotten how eyes worked. After all, sight is an act of interpretation. As the distant sense, sight brings the world to us. It is not as distant, and the world is now a part of who we are. But as my eyes changed, my body moved me to the world. The world remained distant. It was as if the world was evading me. My distant sense no longer brought the world to me. Instead, my body moved me to the world. It was this movement, not creeping blindness, that I began to notice. In this sense, I noticed my sight before I noticed my blindness. When my physicality of sight became something not just felt by me, but something that others noticed, it was not blindness that was being felt or noticed. It was sight. More specifically, what was being felt and noticed was that something was happening to my sight. But before the obvious could be acted upon, before getting glasses, I saw something. What I saw was kind of familiar, but its presence was inappropriate. It was there, and yet it should not have been. I recognized it, I could describe it, but I couldn't place it. It's not so much that it was in front of me, I wasn't so much looking at it, but in a way looking with it, almost through it. I couldn't touch it, but it touched everything I looked at. It distracted me. It captured my attention. It fought for my focus. I felt it as if it were crawling on my skin, running through my veins, attaching itself to my bones. I retreated into my body, scanning every inch of myself, trying to locate what I saw. It was my constant companion, eyes open or shut. It made me question what I saw and even what I knew. It infiltrated my memories, incorporating itself into my past. It shaped my imagination and followed me into my future. It was a type of beauty that was unattractive, an unpredictable energy that swirled inside. It was smooth in its destruction and visible in its invisibility. It inhabited me, and I it. What I saw had been with me long before I ever noticed it. I wonder now if I noticed it, or if it made itself noticeable to me. The oil spot from so many years ago had found its way back. It didn't get into the house, as my grandmother feared. It got into me. The first time I ever saw an oil spot was on the driveway of my grandmother's house. Now, it is in me. Now when I look, I see that oil spot. Or maybe it's a different one. This is my blindness. Thank you all very much. Lovely evening.
Thank you so much, Devon. It's Miggy again. And being passed around the room while Devon was reading her wonderful work, where I'm holding it up right now, cookies that actually depict a representation of Devon's oil spot that is edible, so you can eat the image, as well as the words saying, revealing the intrigue of blindness and disability. Thank you so much, Devon. And Rod is correct. You can purchase the book at the back of the room by the doors at our book table. And Devon has told me that tonight in person, very special sale of the book, much discounted rate. So if you want to get a copy of the book for a cheaper rate, tonight is the night. It is $60 at the back, cash only, please. Also, we noticed that some more folks have been joining us. So if folks need chairs, please let us know. Feel free to come in, join us in the space, move furniture around, get comfortable, however you need to. Just raise your hand or flail your arms if you do need a chair, and we can get you some. Continuing our celebration, we are going to now celebrate disappearing, and I'd like to invite Tanya Titchkosky, one of the editors, to come on up.
Thanks, Miggy. Thanks, Devon and Rod. That's really great. Rod doesn't know this, but during the pandemic, Rod published a book of short stories, and you know the pandemic, what it was. Those books are also on the back table. Yes. Ooh, $20. A book of short stories, and the sense in which blindness matters and is a place from which we can tell stories. Devon and Rod have been working on that, and Devon, congratulations on your book. It's very beautiful what you've done there, and the reading. You all, for me, given we're going through the pandemic, represent the dedication of our new book, Disappearing Encounters in Disability Studies. And the dedication is for those sparks of imagination that realize no lesser humans, no disappeared, no others beneath thought. And there's so many people in the room today who have influenced the development of this book and have influenced my thoughts in social justice and disability studies. And I'm thrilled that we're getting this chance to be together. And you do help us reveal the intrigue that I think the books on the back table and all the authors in the room are trying to represent. I'd like to thank a few people, not least of which Devon and Rod. Your inspiration has really provoked a lot of us. Thank you, Miggy, for your flexibility, especially in the face of the 6:07 canceling of ASL, which left us all feeling a little crushed by that. Car trouble is car trouble, but we really did have expectations for a sense of being together in all our different ways of embodiment, and I hope that Miggy, you've still invited us to be our different bodies together, and I hope if anybody is needing anything, that we could be there. I'd also like to thank the indexer for disappearing. We all felt really, Jennifer Harris, I'm not sure if you're here, Jennifer Harris. Jennifer, you made us feel read and understood, and I really, it was the first time I just loved an index. It's a great index. From Canadian Scholars Press, people really moved with us. There were some times where Thomas Reed has an article, which is a transcription of his blog post, in which he uses the N-word. And some of the reviewers were saying, no, you can't use that word. And he was trying to show the intersections between blackness, racism, disability, and really bring it alive. And the press sided with us that the word had to remain. as he gave many trigger warnings for it. So thanks to Lindsay Malinkowski, Natasha selling books at the back. Yes, Krista, thank you. Thank you. And, you know, the editing team, we got together in about 2017. At that point, it was Elaine Cagulada, Madeline DeWelles, and myself. And we were in disability studies courses. And we were really trying to make sure disability happened in an intersectional way, in a philosophical way, in a way that wasn't just tied to maybe practicality. And yet, it seemed like the topic of disability could keep on disappearing, keep on falling away, that the importance of it wasn't necessarily there for us. And we thought, this isn't just something to lament, this is something to theorize, this is something to narrate, this is something to gather people around. And Maddie, where's Maddie? Maddie? Elaine? Thank you so much for remaining open to imagining how disappearing mattered. And we started working on that. And then Efrat, where's Efrat? Efrat joined the cause, and we became the disappearing team. That's an inside joke, but we are the team. And all the other authors in the room, can you wave or make a noise? Ooh. Hey, thank you. And Rod did the foreword to the book. There's a lot of us working on this. Thank you. I'd also like to thank Kitty. Hello, Kitty. Wallace, Victoria, Aparna. Thanks so much for all your energy and commitment to making this happen. I appreciate it. In 2019, we really got to work on the book just before the pandemic broke loose, and we held a conference called Critical Influencers at OISE. The key question of this conference was, how are critical Indigenous studies, queer studies, Black studies influencing critical disability studies? And we had lots of different presenters trying to show their influence on disability studies, and we were also trying to show how disability studies might influence those critical forms of inquiry. I think this book is an attempt to represent that kind of conversation. Throughout it, you're going to find little block quotations that are a different color, or if you're using a screen reader, you'll hear a little pause and then the block quotation with a full citation that follows the block quotation. These sometimes are disability studies scholars, but sometimes they're Indigenous scholars, Black scholars, queer studies scholars, and it's sort of up to the reader to find what the connection is. They might not mention the body, they might not mention disability or deafness, but we found a connection. And I've been teaching with this book now through these seemingly unrelated quotations that actually bring the author's work alive. So it's a real unique aspect of this book, and helps with making it a teaching book. How many minutes do you think that was that I've been talking? Like 2. 2? Okay. Okay. I'm going to go a few more minutes. I just want to talk about just a little bit of the orientation of the book before I pass it to some of the authors, a little bit of the orientation and one unique aspect, one more unique aspect of it. The book begins from the assumption that disability is more than a thing gone wrong with one's body or mind or senses or emotions. As a complex blend of human experience, disability is woven into all aspects of our identity, of how we know, and actions that we take. Disability is infused within an entire universe of sentiments expressed through experiences ranging from extreme difficulty to absolute wondrous elation, from mundane tasks done differently to adventurous travels into the heart of struggles. Disability is also found within potent societal ideologies concerning the human spirit, overcoming hard work, bad luck, super senses, agile fortitude, and stick-to-it resolve. All this and more is disability. And yet, and here's the crux of the matter, the complex universe of disability often disappears from view. This book is dedicated to making that disappearance come into appearance. Hidden by the readily available sense that disability is simply an unwanted, troubling problem in need of some sort of solution, other more complex and nuanced meanings of disability disappear from our lives. What is disability made to be, such that its complexity is often disappeared? We want that quick solution. For the complexity of disability to disappear, more dominant and expected versions of disability must appear. So one way we've tried to address this is we treat the identifications of disability, the experience of disability. We treat, in fact, models of disability, the affirmative model, the social model, the rights model. We treat these all as beginning places, not as endpoints. This is where all of the chapters, it's sort of amazing. They all start with a model or an experience or an identity of deafness, of autism, of blindness, of being in classrooms, of being racialized. They start there and they say, but that's just a place to begin. That's not a place to end. There's no quick solutions to be found in this book. And I love it for that. This collection is dedicated to revealing the cultural values and assumptions that make these appearances possible, while making other appearances of disability seem impossible. It will help us imagine disability appearing as necessary, desirable, as not a problem. Disappearing engages political, artistic, and philosophical provocations of the disappearing act of disability in our lives. The diversity of topics that the authors explore represents the singular aim of revealing that what disability means could potentially remake our relationships to each other. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to one of the editors and authors, Madeline DeWelles.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Tanya, and thank you, Rod and Devon and Miggy, for a wonderful evening so far. Thank you all so much for being here tonight, and I'm so proud. Whoopsies, sorry. I'm so proud to be one of the editors of the book Disappearing: Encounters in Disability Studies. And I think that this book is really a way to understand disability, as Tanya was saying, far beyond a problem or a problem situated within an individual body. And each of the authors in the book write with such grace and such force and demonstrate a way of living with disability that is creative, that is generative, and is beautifully imaginative. And I'm so honored to have been part of that. And such orientations to disability, which are so often far beyond what is expected, is a way that we can bring disability studies to undergraduates, graduate students, teachers, children, and everyone, and ultimately bring awareness to the promise and power of disability studies in scholarship and in life. So I just want to thank all of you, and thank you to Tanya, Elaine, Efrat, Rod, Devon, Miggy, friends and family, all of our incredible authors, and the amazing team at Canadian Scholars Press, and all of the wonderful graduate assistants working to make Disappearing possible, Dramatizing Blindness possible, and this launch possible. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'd also just like to very quickly chat a little bit about the chapter that I wrote in the book, which is called. Oh boy. It's called Between Peace and Disturbance, Anorexia, Control, and Embodiment. And I wrote this chapter because I believe very much in the possibilities of disability studies in helping us to understand our relationships between the body, society, and the many social controls that govern how we live, learn, and experience our bodies and lives. And as Tanya Titchkosky says, we are never alone in our bodies. And this was the premise from which I wrote the chapter. And it's a way I think of, or it was a way that I wanted to show how eating disorders in general can disturb the peace of the normative body, or what we think of the body. So eating disorders can really, and representations of eating disorders can really push at the edges of that normativity. And that was something that I was thinking about in writing the chapter. And thinking about embodiment and the body and controls, I just have one quotation that I wanted to read from the conclusion of the chapter, and it's, quote, "Anorexia does not simply disappear with the appearance of recovery. Anorexia is not controlled simply with a diagnosis. Embodiment and our embodied relations comprise a myriad of appearances and disappearances. And so too does it comprise peace and disturbance. These are tethered to our bodies, our relationships, and the worlds around us, and contribute to the beautiful complexity of embodiment." And that's the end of the quote, but I wanted to share it because I think it does tie into the themes of appearance, of disappearance, of disability, of embodiment, and the complexity of the body, and the beautiful complexity of it. And just I wanted to thank you all again. It has been such an honor to be part of this book. And I would also like to introduce Elaine Cagulada, who is an incredible colleague, friend, and co-editor. Elaine is also a PhD candidate, and disability studies and Black studies informs much of Elaine's work, and I feel very honored to work and learn alongside her as co-editor and co-author. So, Elaine.
Wow, thanks, Maddie, for that really generous introduction. Hi, everyone. As you probably guessed, my name is Elaine. For my amazing friends who came to support me today, they might know me by Queenie, but now you also know me as Elaine, so woo! You'll be showered with thank yous this evening, and in addition to Maddie's and Tanya's and Miggy's, thank you for being here. Thank you for coming and supporting us. Thank you for showing up. And that means a lot. And I just want to say it's just so lovely to be sharing space with you in person and virtually. A shout out to my family in Calgary who is watching the live stream. And the tech folks who are making that live stream happen. Woo. Yeah, for me, Alberta is always calling, so always. Love you, Mom. Love you, Dad. Okay. So special, too, to be at this launch after spending early COVID times working with the most amazing editing team, Tanya, Maddie, and Efrat. So thanks so much. So cool to be here to make this happen together. And so like Maddie, I wanted to share a little bit about the chapter that I wrote for the edited collection, Disappearing Encounters in Disability Studies. So I wrote a chapter titled the infinity of the encounter, deafness, disability, race, and the sound of story, which emerged from my interest in narrative. In particular, how stories are infused with meaning while fusing us together. Hannah Arendt says that if we are loyal to a story, silence will speak. I listened then to 2 news articles for what their silence might show. Attempting loyalty, my reading of the articles lingered in that middle space between fact and interpretation until deafness, disability, and race began to face me differently. Writing this chapter taught me that what happened on a September evening in 2002 between police officers and a deaf Black man did not occur in isolation, but rather as part of an encounter that travels dimensions and geographies. Minutes, seconds of police violence and brutality came to appear as part of something larger, as waves along a horizon, rippling outward from the heavy drop of singularity and stories of a lesser human. Such is the infinity of the encounter. Worlds coming into contact at every tumbling of the tide, every standing and sinking of the sun. From engaging with the beautiful, compelling pieces in both Disappearing and Dramatizing Blindness, I have felt how the art of storying is resistance, how an interpretive engagement with narrative unfolds possibility. The silence of stories, I'm learning, can sing. With that, I will pass the mic to the wonderful and amazing Dr. Efrat Gold and Sharry Taylor. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, my dear Efrat. This book, giving the opportunity to look at the disappearing and reappearing of disability, was really remarkable for us. Because we look at psychiatric diagnoses, and we look at psychiatric disability. And it gave us the opportunity to say, the disability that we usually see that's shrouded, that's ignored, that's reimagined, that's glossed over, oppressed. And it gave us the chance to explain psychiatric diagnosis differently, but not in the way that you would think. Because normally you would think, well, psychiatric diagnoses are usually reimagined as biological, or somehow responsibilized, individualized. And that's not what we did with this. We reappeared psychiatric diagnoses as something that were reimagined as something quite different. What we propose in our chapter is that psychiatric diagnoses are not individualized, but they're something else. They're actually very much sociological and very much social and relational. They are aspects of our lives. And that was really brought forth in the pandemic when we really could see very much so that our wellness and well-being is related to how we are with each other. So the pandemic allowed this tsunami of anxiety and depression, et cetera, to be writ large, brought relational to everyone. And that the way we feel is related to our relationship with each other. And we hope that you see our chapter as related to joy and sorrow, and see how that is related to our connectedness.
Thanks, Sharry. I can't really add anything to that because it's amazing, but selfishly, I brought my disappearing book, and I want all the authors who are here to sign it. So if there's anybody who's here, if you want to come and introduce yourselves, or even maybe say a few words about your chapters, I'd like to invite a moment for that.
Sounds good.
Followed by awkward silence, of course.
And who is next?
I think Miggy is an author in the room who has a few words as well.
Thank you, Efrat. Thank you, Efrat. It's Miggy here. Yes, I'm an author, so I can share a bit about my chapter as well. So my chapter is called Embracing the Gesture, a dance of the ordinary and its extra. And inspired by the call for this wonderful book to think about disappearances and appearances, I was really interested and intrigued by how disability so easily disappears from our performances of everyday life. And in thinking about that, how it disappears, I started to think of it choreographically. There's a choreography to how disability can so easily be made to disappear. As a dancer myself, I was like, oh, choreography. How can I explore this? And I explored it as a task that can be interpreted and also reinterpreted. And in its reinterpretation, I was really intrigued. And this is when I was really starting to be introduced to disability studies through courses with Tanya and Rod and Devon, and exploring how disability studies is kind of like a dance, with the possibility of reinterpreting a choreography that can so easily make disability disappear in a way that can make its extraordinary possibility reappear, appear, and be made to matter in our everyday lives. And so through that, in my chapter, I simply explore a gesture of a hug and just try and find the ways in which disability appears and disappears, and can really just inspire our movement through such a meaningful gesture, especially through the pandemic, such a relational gesture, a gesture that I think we so often take for granted. And I think it was through disability studies, that I was really able to return to such a simple gesture and really explore the beauty and the meaningfulness of it. So yeah, that's my chapter. Again, I would love to open up the floor for any authors who just want to even introduce themselves, share their names. Also, because as we end the evening as well, we invite folks to chat with authors to talk to them about that. So if there are any authors who want to come up, just say their name, or just want to wave as well, feel free to. Feel free to wave. Amazing. Thank you so much, everybody. So that is the end of our formal program. A few things to say. Number one, big thank you to Jana, who's been doing our captioning, our live captioning, and helping us with that support. As well as a thank you to Pat and Willow doing our tech for us. Helping us also with the live stream. Thank you for everyone joining us via live stream. Again, I'm going to plug it again. We have the books on sale in the back table. We have copies of Disappearing. We have copies of Dramatizing Blindness at discount. We have copies of Things Are Different Here by Rod Michalko. So it's cash only there, but also if you don't have cash or you're not here with us in person, we also have available a discount code if you'd like to buy it online. The information for discount code are at the table as well as in the YouTube description. You can find all that information to get the discount for the books. An exciting announcement as well. If you want to keep exploring and keep revealing the intrigue of disability, blindness, deafness, all of our different ways of embodiment, there is a collective of students, faculty, scholars, activists, artists at the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education who are really interested in exploring the poetics of disability, exploring the arts and how that can reveal disability differently. And if you're interested in learning more about that group, joining that group, coming to our future events, we have a sign-up sheet at the back by the food table. You can also email us at disabilitystudiesoise@gmail.com. Also, feel free just to contact the email address for the event and ask about that collective. And we welcome you to join us for those explorations throughout the year. Am I missing anything else? Thank you. I think that's it. So we would like to end off, we'd like to invite the authors for a photograph at the back. We invite everyone here as well to say hi, to talk about chapters that are interesting to you. Please stay and grab more drinks at our cash bar. We have vegan sushi. We have cookies with oil spots that are edible. Edible blindness, as Devon just pointed out to us. Please stay, join us in the celebration, mix and mingle. As well, for those of you who are here tonight, there is a special surprise later on, so we invite you to stay. In about 40 minutes, Tanya says, so we invite you to stay for that. But thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.